In her office, bathed in spring sunlight, Linda Wilson gazed at the wedding photograph on her desk. That moment from 5 years ago, which should have been filled with happiness, held an unnatural shadow. Her parents' smiles barely concealed their dissatisfaction, something that still constricts her heart to this day. In the photo, she wore a pure white wedding dress, nestled in Michael's arms. It should have been a joyous moment, but her parents' subtle expressions had spoiled everything. Growing up with her sister in a quiet residential area of suburban Hartford, Connecticut, those memories were far from peaceful. Caitlin will surely find a job helping people. She remembers her mother's voice praising her sister as if it were yesterday. The comparisons that began in childhood had become her daily reality. Even when she outperformed her sister academically, her parents' attention remained fixed on Caitlin. Even on Christmas morning, it was always Caitlin's presents that were opened first. "You're smart, so you'll be fine. But Caitlin needs special attention," her father would always say in the same tone. Even on the day Linda achieved top grades in her class, the conversation shifted to Caitlin's new volunteer work. At high school graduation, while her parents proudly discussed her sister's cheerleading activities, Linda delivered the valedictorian speech. Each time, she learned to smile silently and suppress her emotions. Still, Linda had steadfastly forged her own path. She graduated top of her class from a prestigious university and established her career at a pharmaceutical company. Meeting Michael, an investment analyst, showed her new possibilities in life. On her wedding day, in her parents' colonial-style house built in the 1980s, as the bride busied herself with preparations for the modest ceremony, her mother casually, but certainly hurtfully, remarked, "When Caitlin gets married, we'll have to do something grander. Maybe at that lovely hotel near West Farms Mall." Michael had gently embraced her when those words hurt her. "Don't worry about it. Let's start our new life together," he had said. The warmth of his hands and the softness of his voice remained vivid in her memory. 5 years had passed. Family interactions had dwindled to obligatory phone calls a few times a year and occasional emails. The Sunday brunch tradition had gradually faded away. The emails invariably boasted about her sister's achievements as a nurse at Memorial General Hospital. Their parents proudly spoke of their daughter's helping profession while dismissing Linda's promotions at the pharmaceutical company. Caitlin helped so many patients again today. She truly found her calling. Linda could only manage formal replies to such emails from her parents. Instead, she immersed herself in work. As manager of Pharmco Incorporated's compliance department, her judgment was consistently accurate and level-headed. Her ability to make decisions without emotional interference was, ironically, something she had learned from her family relationships. The Starbucks latte on her desk was growing cold. The spring sunlight continued to stream warmly through the office window. In this modern office building surrounded by glass and steel, Linda turned away from the wedding photo and back to her computer screen. She took a sip of the cooling latte. The bitterness spreading across her tongue seemed like a harbinger of what was to come. On her computer screen, Facebook's timeline was displayed as usual. During a short break between meetings with clients, she scrolled absently. Posts from relatives and friends flowed past. Her scrolling finger stopped. "A new life has been born at Memorial Hospital. Our angel, Emma." Linda's eyes froze on the poster's name. Caitlin Anderson. Her sister's name. The photo showed her sister holding a baby in a hospital bed. Unlike her typically flashy personality, she wore an unusually gentle expression. Their parents stood on either side with beaming smiles, celebrating the birth of a new life. Her mother had tears in her eyes, and her father wore a proud expression. However, Linda's eyes were fixed on something captured at the edge of the photo. On the bedside table, there was a familiar wallet. A black leather luxury brand item. The one she had given her husband for Christmas. Next to it was the distinctive keychain Michael had bought during his Las Vegas business trip. It can't be. Linda's fingertips began to tremble. She checked the timestamp on the screen. The post was from 30 minutes ago. Michael was supposed to be on a business trip to Chicago. Cold sweat trickled down her spine. The office air conditioning suddenly seemed jarring. While gentle spring winds scattered cherry blossoms outside the window, Linda's core was frozen. "Stay calm, stay calm." Whispering to herself, she took several deep breaths. Her experience in the compliance department was serving her well now. She must avoid emotional reactions. She needed to preserve evidence. She took out her smartphone and photographed the computer screen. She also saved screenshots. The post's date and time, comments, number of likes. She recorded everything. "Oh, Linda. How unusual to see you on Facebook at this hour." A voice suddenly came from behind. Turning around, she saw her colleague Jennifer standing there. She tried to peek at the screen. Linda hastily closed the browser. "Just taking a break. I'm heading out soon." Linda responded, consciously keeping her voice steady. Jennifer looked puzzled but said nothing more. "Congratulations. Wishing you happiness." Her fingers trembled slightly as they struck the keyboard. While typing a comment on the post, Linda desperately suppressed her emotions. She pressed the send button. The posted message that appeared on screen felt somehow hollow. From her desk drawer, she took out a business card holder. Inside was a card for Blackstone Detective Agency, a reliable agency she had used for company investigations before. Linda picked up her smartphone and dialed the number. "Hello, Blackstone Detective Agency." "Hello, this is Linda Wilson from Farmco Incorporated." "Ms. Wilson, it's been a while. How can we help you today?" "I'd like to request a personal investigation." After hanging up, Linda began organizing her desk. She needed to cancel her afternoon meetings. She sent a brief email to her secretary, Sarah. "Leaving early due to illness. Please reschedule all afternoon appointments for tomorrow." As she picked up her handbag, Linda looked out the window. The spring sunlight still shone brightly, illuminating the city. However, to her eyes, the scene looked alien. Before leaving the office, she checked her smartphone one more time. The Facebook post had already gathered dozens of likes. Congratulatory messages kept appearing in the comments section. The innocent joy of relatives and friends. Among them, Linda's congratulations floated coldly. As she stepped into the elevator, her eyes fell on her wedding ring. The symbol of love and trust they had sworn 5 years ago. Its sparkle now seemed ironic. When she reached the lobby on the first floor, the receptionist greeted her cheerfully. Linda returned a perfunctory smile as she quickly left the building. In the early summer weather, people walking through the high-rise district were all wrapped up in their daily bustle. She hailed a taxi and gave the driver the detective agency's address. As the car started moving and the cityscape flowed past, Linda quietly strengthened her resolve. This was the beginning of the end. And it would become the starting point of a new life. The Blackstone Detective Agency was located on the 15th floor of an old office building downtown. She had visited several times for company investigations, but today felt entirely different. Stepping off the elevator, she saw the dull brass plate. At reception, a woman in her late 50s greeted her with a warm smile. "John Blackstone is waiting for you." The meeting room she was led to was furnished with heavy wooden furniture, and photographs chronicling the detective agency's long history adorned the walls. "Ms. Wilson, it's been a while." Mr. Blackstone appeared in his usual navy suit. His graying hair and gentle expression gave him a fatherly air of reassurance. However, his gaze was sharp, reflecting years of experience. "This is a personal request." Linda began explaining the situation while showing him her smartphone screen. The Facebook post, the wallet and keychain captured in the photo, her husband's fake business trip. As she spoke, she noticed her voice was surprisingly calm. "I see," Blackstone nodded deeply. "Let's start with basic fact-checking. Your husband's recent behavior patterns, credit card usage history, phone records." And then he meticulously noted the necessary investigation items in his notebook. "Given our long-standing relationship of trust, we'll prioritize this investigation." True to his word, the investigation results began coming in at an astonishing pace. The first report was about Michael's travel records. While company records showed a Chicago business trip, his name wasn't on any airline reservations. Instead, they found a reservation at the Ritz-Carlton, a luxury hotel within walking distance of Memorial Hospital. "We've checked the security camera footage." The detective's report included photos of the two meeting secretly in the hotel lobby. Caitlin wore a flashy red dress. Michael was in his usual well-groomed suit. The two talked intimately, showing no trace of guilt in their expressions. The credit card usage history spoke volumes as well. Luxury restaurants, brand shops, and most shockingly, continuous purchases from high-end baby stores over the past 6 months. Everything had been planned. "We've completed the analysis of phone records." Flipping through the report revealed a startling pattern. While Linda worked late nights, frequent calls occurred between Michael and her sister. The number exceeded 500 calls over the past year. "We've also obtained Memorial Hospital records." Blackstone pulled out a new file. Pregnancy was confirmed 9 months ago. According to the attending physician's records, she had regular checkups from early pregnancy. "And the due date?" He hesitated for a moment. "Coincides with when Michael first started his e-business trips." The evidence kept piling up. Records of purchasing a luxury brand stroller. Rumors of visits to an upscale hot spring inn together. And most decisively, hospital security camera footage capturing Michael repeatedly accompanying her to prenatal checkups. Everything was perfectly documented. With this much evidence, you'll have sufficient advantage in divorce mediation. Linda quietly nodded at Blackstone's words. "As the next step, let me introduce you to a reliable lawyer." Just then, Linda's smartphone vibrated. A new Facebook notification. More likes on her sister's post. Passionate comments from their parents. Congratulatory messages from friends. Among them, Linda's congratulations glowed cold as ice. Ms. Wilson. While tidying up the documents, Blackstone spoke quietly. In my experience, many clients become emotional when faced with such situations. But your composure is remarkable. Linda gave a bitter smile. It's what I learned in the compliance department. Don't get swept up in emotions, gather evidence, follow proper procedures. That's all. Still, no matter how calm you are, this is family betrayal. If you need anything, please contact us anytime. Whatever we can do. Thank you. Linda stood up and looked out the window. Twilight was approaching, casting a soft light over the city. But I'll be fine. This isn't an ending. It's a new beginning. Before leaving the meeting room, she turned back to Blackstone one last time. One more request. Could you investigate my parents as well? I think there's a high possibility they knew about this situation. Blackstone nodded silently. His expression showed his readiness for the new investigation ahead. Outside, the twilight city was bustling with people heading home. Linda took a deep breath. The air already carried hints of night, but her heart felt surprisingly clear. She took out her smartphone to schedule an appointment with the lawyer. The evidence was sufficient. Now it was time to prepare legally. And then wait for the moment to reveal the truth. As she got into a taxi, Linda's eyes fell on her wedding ring. That ring that had become unnecessary. Her parents' house maintained the same appearance it had for over 30 years. The well-maintained lawn, her mother's cherished rose garden, and the old brass door knocker at the entrance. Everything was familiar yet felt alien today. Linda took a deep breath in the car. The final report from the Blackstone Detective Agency was in her bag. All the truth, including the investigation results of her parents, was contained within. Are you ready? Sarah Cohen, the lawyer in the passenger seat, spoke quietly. In her late 40s, she was highly regarded as a divorce specialist. Remember, you have many people on your side. When she rang the doorbell, her mother came out. Oh, Linda. How unusual. There was a slight tension in her voice. Everyone was already gathered in the living room. Her father sat in his usual spot on the sofa, looking up from his newspaper. Her sister Caitlin wore a flashy post-pregnancy dress, holding the baby. And Michael stood by the window. Thank you all for gathering here today. Linda's voice was surprisingly steady. The sound of Cohen opening her briefcase echoed in the heavy atmosphere. What kind of gathering is this? Her mother asked anxiously. It's a place to discuss the truth, Linda answered calmly. First, please look at these. The evidence spread out on the table. Photos of secret hotel meetings. Credit card usage history. Hospital records. And numerous messages exchanged between her parents and Caitlin. This is... Her father's face turned pale. Wait, let me explain. Michael stepped forward. At first it was just sympathy. She seemed lonely. Lonely? Linda's voice trembled slightly. Or were you just bored with our marriage? That's not it. Before I knew it, I was in too deep. Michael continued. I really love you. Can't we forget everything and start over? Start over? Linda laughed softly. You can say that after seeing this evidence? Caitlin suddenly stood up. After handing the baby to their mother, she wore a challenging expression. Yes, I did it. I wanted to ruin Big Sister's perfect life. Always being compared. Big Sister is smart, Big Sister is excellent, Big Sister is. Caitlin, her mother tried to stop her. No, Mom, Caitlin continued. Big Sister ruined my life. Parents' expectations, everyone's evaluation, everything. So I wanted to do the same to her. Be quiet, her father shouted. But there was something weak in his voice. And you, Dad, Linda calmly retorted. Why did you turn a blind eye? According to the detective's report, you must have known about their relationship. Silence dominated the room. Her mother began crying. Then, Cohen cleared her throat quietly. Mrs. Anderson, the lawyer addressed her mother gently. Could you tell us about your past? The color drained from her mother's face. How? We've investigated everything, Linda said. Your teenage pregnancy, hasty marriage, and... Stop, her mother screamed. But it couldn't be stopped now. Is that why you were so obsessed with Caitlin's happy marriage? Linda questioned. Is that also why you said we'll do something grander for Caitlin at my wedding? I didn't want her to struggle like we did. Her mother's voice trembled. Appearances matter. And what about my life? Linda's voice showed emotion for the first time. What about my happiness? Her father stood up. Linda, Dad was influenced by Mom and overprotected Caitlin, Linda interrupted. My independence was misunderstood as cold, and we grew apart. And you turned a blind eye to your daughter's affair. All for the sake of family appearances. No one could argue. The evidence was too clear. Now, let me tell you the schedule going forward. Linda regained her composure. Cohen pulled out documents. First, the divorce mediation schedule. Then, Linda continued, I'll report to Michael's company and Memorial Hospital by tomorrow. The investigation results about their inappropriate relationship. Wait. Caitlin cried out. My job. You should have thought about that, Linda said coldly. Actions have consequences. Social media announcement? Cohen confirmed. As planned. Linda, please. Michael pleaded. I'll demand substantial compensation from you, Linda said, ignoring her husband. And money to sell the parents' house and relocate. The house, her father exclaimed in surprise. Yes. Your credibility in this area will be lost. The baby started crying. Her mother just silently rocked the baby. The once perfect family portrait was now crumbling before their eyes. Let's end this. Linda stood up. Cohen quietly packed the documents into her bag. Linda. Her mother called out one last time. Are you really? I'm going to be happy, Linda turned and said. This time, in the true sense. Leaving the living room heavy with tension, she didn't look back. Her new life had already begun. 1 year later, in spring. From the top floor of a glass high-rise, Linda looked down at the city from her new office. 3 months had passed since her promotion to Director of Compliance at Farmco Incorporated. Her spacious corner office still carried the scent of new furniture. On her desk lay a Businessweek article that covered an entire page. Under the headline, "Female Leader Building a New Era in the Pharmaceutical Industry," Linda's photo was featured. The interview highly praised her innovative compliance program. "Ms. Wilson, preparations for the next meeting are complete." Jessica, her new secretary, quietly knocked while announcing. Her previous secretary, Sarah, had been promoted to manager in another department on Linda's recommendation. "Thank you. Just 5 more minutes." Outside the window, a refreshing sky spread out after a spring storm had passed. The new green leaves on the street trees sparkled in the sunlight. Her smartphone vibrated. It was a notification from a local news site. Former Goldman and Partners analyst deny new position on West Coast. Though Michael's name wasn't in the article, Linda knew who it was about. After the divorce, he had been forced to resign from his company, and his life had been on a downward spiral since. High alimony payments and a ruined industry reputation. The last she heard, he was working at a small securities firm in a provincial city for less than a third of his former salary. Another tab showed an article about Memorial Hospital. Nursing license suspension appeal rejected due to inappropriate relationship. Caitlin's life had changed dramatically too. After being fired from the hospital and losing her nursing career, she had moved back in with their parents. Life as a single mother proved harder than she had imagined. Her parents had eventually sold their longtime home and moved to another state. The loss of credibility in their community had been more serious than they had anticipated. For the two of them, who had taken pride in their teaching careers, it must have been an unbearable reality. In the end, trying to maintain appearances cost them everything, Linda whispered softly. But there was no regret in her voice. From her desk drawer, she took out a photograph. The wedding picture from 5 years ago. What once squeezed her heart now felt like a distant past. The photo went quietly into the shredder. Her new life was more fulfilling than she had imagined. On weekends, she had started attending a yoga class she had long been interested in. Sunday brunch with friends she met there had become a new pleasure. Even dinner alone, with ingredients carefully selected from Whole Foods, felt like a special luxury. "Ms. Wilson, it's time." Prompted by Jessica's voice, Linda stood up. Today's board meeting included her presentation on the new compliance system she had developed. As she stepped into the hallway, young employees bowed respectfully. Her former reputation for being cold had transformed into one of admiration for being dignified. On her way to the conference room, her smartphone vibrated again. This time, it was a notification from an online dating app. Confirming dinner plans with someone she had matched with last week. He was a university professor, and their intellectual conversation had flowed naturally from their first message. Still taking it slow, she reminded herself. However, she couldn't completely deny the excitement of new possibilities. Before opening the conference room door, Linda checked her appearance. A navy-tailored suit with a subtle yet striking pearl necklace. Her makeup was understated but perfect, and her expression radiated confidence. "Good morning." Linda's voice as she entered the conference room was dignified and strong. Outside the window, the spring sunlight heralded the beginning of a new season. Looking at her reflection in the glass table, Linda smiled slightly. It wasn't a smile of complete victory or satisfaction from revenge. It was simply the quiet expression of pride from a woman who had reclaimed her life. "Shall we begin?" Linda's voice echoed in the bright conference room. This wasn't an ending. It was just another beginning of a new story.